All right. Hey, everybody. This is Derek.
This is Mark.
What's up, dude? Welcome to part two.
Yeah, round two. Maybe we'll go to round three next time. I don't know.
Yeah, I,
There's going to be
I'm,
round 15, but this is going to turn into a Egypt podcast. I'm
yeah,
okay with that.
yeah. I mean, we didn't get through half of the pictures last time, and that was an extremely pared down, like, subset of pictures that I selected in the first place. So, yeah, we're screwed.
Dude, when I was in Egypt in those 2 weeks, I took 95% of the pictures I've ever taken in my entire life.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Never, never took so many pictures. And I'm usually really bothered by taking pictures. Like, oh God, I got to take a picture. Oh, this is so lame.
Hmm.
But it's not like that in Egypt.
We got some great feedback on part one. Thank you for everybody who watched on YouTube. I think we had some people who watched on YouTube who are not normal listeners to the podcast as well, which is like really cool. Um, I thought it was really like fun and cool to be able to do that. I sent it to some family members. I sent it to people from our chat, people who were on the trip with us who watched it and checked in. That was awesome. Best wishes to all of you out there if you're watching and hearing part two. I hope this is like some good memories of that amazing trip that we had. And I definitely want to shout out the guy on YouTube who said, "Have you explored the sexual dimensions of your friendship?" Question mark. Um, I gave that
What,
one a
what, what do you
thumbs
think
up.
Egypt's a metaphor for?
Yeah, exactly. Well, look at these. Look at these freaking obelisks right here. That's just two boners right there.
Yeah, this is all just us coming to terms with our homosexuality.
We were sleeping in the same room for 2 weeks. It was a dream come true.
Yeah, like it was Brokeback Mountain, but in Egypt.
Yeah,
Brokeback obelisk.
that's right.
And
Um,
also, if you guys are listening to this, I want you to go check out Brothers of the Serpent podcast. They have a YouTube channel, and they did one episode with Marty and Chuck
mhm.
from our trip, and I really appreciate that because it's these guys who have a lot of experience in a certain area with building,
Mhm.
and they're just giving their take on everything. And they're not right about everything. Of course, nobody is right about everything when it comes to this, and I just want to do our version of that, even though we don't really have any background in building or anything, but just giving our take on it. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, and I feel like we really lucked out that one time when it was relatively early on in the trip, and we just happened to wind up sitting down at lunch one day next to Chuck and Marty, and they just like took it away. It was like the lunch itself was like a little podcast performance because they were like so hyped up and had already made so many cool observations,
Yeah.
that it really made the trip better to have people like that who are like really infusing their own viewpoint on things into the whole thing. I mean, Ben on his own is amazing, fantastic. That's how we got into this whole thing in the first place. If you haven't seen Ben
Yeah, well,
Uncharted
obviously
X,
Ben, but these other guys too who are on the trip. I mean,
yeah,
that's
but just to
yeah.
have like, customers basically, like civilians, quote unquote, who were, just going for the ride the way that me and you were, but who had real insights, was super cool. And yeah, this is our version of trying to give back a little bit of that same kind of thing for
Yeah, my
sure.
insights are a little bit less nuanced.
It's mostly boner jokes, but
Look, it's a rock. That
yeah.
rock looks like a penis.
If you actually want insights from me, you can check out antitoi.substack.com, ANTITOI. I just put up my best metal albums, or my top 10 albums of 2022. And so there's a little cross promotion there. Everyone can go check that out. I would love to have people read that as well. But the focus today is Egypt. Sorry, I don't mean to pollute the waters here.
Right. So we're in Karnak now.
This is Karnak. I think we left off here last time around. Karnak is, if I remember correctly, the biggest temple in Egypt, the biggest like temple grounds, and the biggest obelisk still standing in Egypt, which is an important qualifier.
Right. Yeah. I mean, largest, I think, in terms of acreage.
Hmm.
Wait, just to be clear though, so we're already in Karnak and we skipped over Luxor. You don't have any photos from Luxor?
We did Luxor last time.
Did we?
Yeah, I think you were probably falling asleep already.
Dude, I was so tired last time. Yeah. It was past my
Luxor,
bedtime.
when I did watch back our full episode from last time, I'm proud of us. I think we did a pretty good job. But there's two things I will say. First of all, maybe it goes without saying, we are skipping a lot. If you know us IRL, then definitely you should ask us to see the full set of pictures at some point, because there's a lot more. And we did pick and choose just for the sake of time. And two, specifically, I would say that Luxor was, in my opinion, really hard to capture. We went there at sunset. I think you saw a little bit of that in the photos from the last episode, but it was really hard to capture just in a picture how, to me at least, like that place was actually stunning, like spiritually stirring. And I think I mentioned this already on the last episode, but if I didn't, I just want to say it again. It was by far the place where, like, when it was time to go, I really did not want to leave. I just wanted to spend like all night there. I would have like slept there just in the dirt if I could, because there was just something about it. I think it was the fact that we were there in the evening, and like the Serapeum is more awe-inspiring. Going inside the pyramids, the stuff that you're going to see today, truly was like the grand finale of the trip. Like, you haven't seen anything yet. Like, stay tuned. But there was something special about Luxor, and we did kind of cram it in at the end in the last episode.
Yeah, I mean that's what we were talking about last week. You just can't put this stuff onto a picture. You got to
Mm-hmm.
go there and really feel it, feel the vibes.
Yeah.
I know we make fun of Makana Suites for saying that, but dude, sometimes you just got to DJ the vibes. Honestly,
Definitely.
when you don't have a lot of information to go on, just got to get the vibes. Yeah, my vibes from Luxor is, oh, this church is 20,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I know that's not scientific, but
So yeah, let's move on to some stuff that we saw at Luxor. You know what? I think it was actually this specific day, or sorry, at Karnak. I think it was this day when we sat with Chuck and Marty at lunch, because I remember that they were fascinated by this specific tool mark.
right.
And they were just talking about how this is so complex. Not only are you seeing a circular drill here, but you're seeing this sort of specialized sort of like flange on it, or whatever you would call it. That was just like very interesting to conceptualize, like how would this have been done. Is this like a rod that you have like a bigger bit on the end of? Are you turning this entire piece of stone around something, rather than maneuvering a machine around? I don't know, I just thought it was a cool one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's something I would have not picked up on. And they were looking at it and they were saying that the tube drill was drilled before, and I forget. They're looking at some kind of order with this. I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
And they could tell by the markings what was made first. I don't know.
The other
Yeah,
thing that was
yeah. Continue. Right.
the other thing that was very special and very kind of like captivating, that I think a lot of people probably miss if they go to Karnak, was that there were these slabs of rock that were in one of the temple courtyards that specifically kind of grabbed Chuck, because he's a geologist. And this is a picture of one of them. We wound up, pouring some water on it and stuff to really kind of get a closer look. If you're just walking around, not really thinking about it, just absorbing the vibes of the place, you're definitely going to just walk right past this and not think about it, because it's just kind of a flat piece of rock sitting in a courtyard. But it's definitely shaped. It's definitely placed there on purpose, and it's big. And then the thing that Chuck pointed out when he walked by it is, he's like, "Holy shit! Like, this is way older than everything else on the site." And you
Yeah.
can see it here. Like, this is like kind of crumbling apart. This is thousands of years older than the other stone that's on the site. So this was very interesting.
And once Chuck showed us this, I mean, I'd mentioned something to him in the Temple of Hathor that had similar blocks like this. These very old pieces of granite that are so old they're simply crumbling apart, and they were in the Sphinx Temple as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, once you see this, and when somebody points it out, you start to see it everywhere.
And yeah, I don't want to put words in his mouth about like specific dates. He was being very objective and scientific about it. But I mean, he definitely, I don't think that I'm going out of bounds by saying that he was convinced that this is thousands of years older than the other, already extremely impressive and old, granite that we were seeing at these sites. But this
Right.
one was really crumbling apart. And he did mention that, like, it's not just age and just like generic weathering that will do something like this to a stone like granite. The other thing that could have been an explanation would have been fire. If this was a place where they were making a lot of fires, then that would also have degraded it in this sort of like asymmetrical way, where certain minerals, like this is the feldspar inside of the granite here,
Yeah.
like this holds up and doesn't sort of like, decompose into dust the way that some of the other components do. But yeah, this was just like a fascinating
Right,
piece of
because
stone.
granite's a composite, a conglomerate kind of rock, and it's made of different kinds of rock in effect. And some of that rock is harder than others. And then you see the feldspar. I think that's harder,
Yeah.
so that's going to not decompose, but erode a lot slower. So that's why you get those pieces there. And this is what we were saying a couple of weeks ago about how the poor granite theory, of how they built some of the stuff, it doesn't hold up because granite isn't this. It's not like mercury, right? It's not this like singular thing. It's made of a bunch of different elements, right? It's not a single element. So
Right.
you wouldn't get this if this was just poured. And another thing about these huge slabs of granite is they were always in the doorways. They're
Yes.
always in the floor of the door. No, not always, but when we saw them in other temples, they were in the doorways.
Yeah, this one was not. This one was sitting out in a courtyard. But when we started noticing it in other places, it was like the threshold of a doorway is where you would see
Yeah, a
it. It
lot
would
of the
be
times
under
it was
your
a
feet.
threshold of doorway. Again,
Yeah.
indicating that these rocks meant something to the people who built those doors,
Hmm.
those doorways.
Yeah, and maybe also
And
indicating that like those were there already, and then when they built a temple structure, they organized it maybe around these pieces potentially.
right, yeah, maybe.
Okay, so I don't really remember why I included this picture, but I guess it does give you a little bit of perspective of like how large the walls are and some of the huge, uh, you know, um,
Dude, I'm getting
reliefs.
swamp ass PTSD.
Yeah, right, exactly. There was a lot of, yeah, right, walking through these big open courtyards in the heat. This is this still Karnak or are we moving on now? See, this is where like I'm
Now
getting
this
into
is
too.
the inside of like right in the inside of the picture you just showed. This
Right,
is Karnak.
right. This is after you pass through. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yep. Yeah,
Oh
and this
wait,
shows
no,
you.
it's not. No, this is. I'm sorry. This is the
Is this Philae Temple?
what's the Falcon Temple of? Jeez, dude.
Here's what we're gonna do. Hold on one sec. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second here.
Temple of Horus. Is that what this is?
That's exactly what I'm gonna do. Is I'm gonna just go up and pull up our itinerary real fast because we're looking at these in chronological order here.
Edfu. I think it might be Edfu. In fact, I would bet it's Edfu because it's where all the falcons. It's where that huge granite falcon
Yes,
is out front, and there are
yes,
several of them.
you're right. I'm just confirming right here that yeah, the next day is Edfu and Kom Ombo. Those are the two next places that we're
But
going
the
to.
previous picture definitely was Karnak with those obelisks.
All right, yeah, good call. Okay, let me just resume. All right, got me. Can you see my screen again?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So we're in Edfu here. Yep. Which is what had this, yeah, courtyard. So yeah, kind of situating ourselves on the trip at this point. So we flew down, I think we mentioned on the last episode, right? From Cairo down into Luxor, right? And we stayed at a hotel in Luxor. And then as part of that trip, we wound up checking out of that hotel and checking onto a cruise ship, which I think we did at the end of this day. Uh, can't exactly remember, but yeah. So some
Yeah.
of these sites that we're seeing, like Luxor Temple, Karnak, which we were just looking at, Edfu and Kom Ombo, those are all like in that area. So this is in Upper Egypt, which actually means that you're farther south. You're upriver on the Nile, farther south down into Africa.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, there's some amazing columns. Again,
Yeah, and these lotus flowers. I don't know exactly what they are. I mean, that's just what I assume everything is, unless they're proven otherwise or
mm-hmm.
shown otherwise. So these are very similar to. I mean, we didn't go there, but up in uh there's some part in the northern part of Egypt, lower Egypt by the delta, where huge granite lotus columns, like pieces of columns like this, but made out of granite. And I don't think these are made out of granite. I think these are some kind of sandstone. But
Yeah, that one
I guess the
column
point is, yeah,
piece,
there's granite like that.
right? That one granite column piece that looks just like this is the one that Ben points out all the time, because it's like so amazing, and it's just kind of like sitting in, yeah, sort of just like a empty, sort of desert
Tanis,
area
Tanis is the
in
place.
Tanis, yeah, and like the thing obviously to point out about that is like, okay, so this is a single piece of rock, so that means that like they started with something this big, right, like this circumference, and then they
Right.
like carved
And
out
just
all of
chipped
this,
everything away.
yeah, and they're perfectly symmetrical, um, and
And
but the
notice the ceiling there, though, right? I mean, go back to the ceiling.
mhm,
That is a lot of big slabs of limestone.
right,
I know
and
we
these
pointed it out last week with the Temple of Hathor, but
right, yeah, we showed on the last episode when we got to go on the roof, like above the roof, and look down and see the top side of these types of
massive,
pieces,
massive
and
pieces
they're,
of limestone.
yeah, they're incredible.
And limestone's still a fairly hard rock,
Hmm.
especially some of the limestone the Egyptians were using.
Hmm.
We compare it to granite, so you think, oh, it's not that hard. No, it's not easy to work with. Anyway, I mean,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean that.
obviously granite and diorite is something else completely, but
Yeah, I mean that stuff is impressive. It's crazy. It's especially when you're in its presence, it's overwhelming. But just for the sake of transition, I mean, it's really nothing compared to something like this, which is
yeah,
just
something
like
like that is.
unbelievable. So yeah, this is inside of the temple at Edfu,
Yeah, you see the
and
polish on that right there
yeah,
at the bottom.
it's recessed into a roped off like alcove that you're not allowed into, although Yusuf got Ben into it, and so Ben has close-ups, which I'm sure that he's gonna post more of.
Yeah,
He does have
follow
some
Ben
of
on
this.
Twitter. He posts them on Twitter.
Yeah, and
Uncharted
he
X.
does have some of this on YouTube, and I think more is coming because he was able to like survey this whole thing with his iPad camera. But this thing is absolutely out of this world. And yeah, like you said, you can see like the sheen on this is just
Yeah,
incredible. And it's just a giant piece of granite, and it
yeah.
has these rounded like filigree on it or whatever you would call it. And yeah, you can see the way in which it's sort of like smoothed in this kind of uneven way that is almost like a glaze of some sort. I mean, that's what it just looks like to your eye. I'm not that saying that's what it is, but it's
Yeah, it
like,
looks like a glaze, right?
yeah, it's like some sort of vitrification or something. It has relief carved into it. And then of course the other insane thing about this, which we're going to get to later on this evening, is that there's another one of these that's on its side at Elephantine Island, which is just absolutely insane. It seems completely out of place. It just doesn't make sense to see it where it is. And sort of as kind of like late breaking news, on one of Ben's newer videos, he has a lot of detail about how there you can clearly see on some of these rounded parts in the one on Elephantine Island. You can clearly see how it's like machined as like flat surfaces and then like smoothed out into a perfect curve, a perfect rounded cornice or
Well,
filigree or whatever.
I think those statues, those granite statues that were just like the rough outline, like if you do a sketch of somebody,
Mm-hmm.
you start off with just drawing shapes.
Mm-hmm.
It was the statue version of that in granite, and they were saying, "Oh, this is how they learned." That looks like the same to me. To me,
Right.
in my idiot, brain, my perspective here, that looks like the same kind of faceting.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like
And
you're
then
getting this thing into something close to the shape that it's going to be in eventually.
yeah. Yeah, and the one that's on Elephantine Island, you can see yet again, just like we saw in on the Pyramid at Giza, and like we saw in the Osirian, you can see like unfinished work, because the one on Elephantine Island has like facets, like it's been chiseled away on half of it, and then it's smoothed on the other half. Like they were in the middle of turning it into a perfectly curved edge or whatever, and then they stopped. So it's just, I don't know. We'll get to that later.
Yeah, and how
Um,
big is that lentil?
yeah, I mean, this thing was absolutely massive. Just another example. I mean, like you said, like, yes, this is limestone, it's not like this is granite, but
Yeah,
still it's
it's
completely huge.
everywhere, guys.
Yeah.
I know something that we're maybe not putting, you can't really put in on to film is just that this stuff is everywhere.
Hmm.
And it's a real pain in the butt to work this with copper tools. You can do it, but I don't know.
Yeah, so here we're on the boat. I think this is, I included this just to give a little example of taking a picture from the boat. So this is the Nile. We're cruising the Nile here. I don't have a lot of pictures of us cruising the Nile. The day when we actually got to like go out on boats and go swimming
Well, on
like
that
at a
particular
beach.
cruise ship, pictures weren't allowed, right?
That's right. Yeah, it was a nudist cruise ship. So yeah, you had to go into a lockbox. Your phone had to go into a lockbox, a Faraday cage. Um, but yeah, I thought this was cool to just kind of capture, like look, the climate, Egypt's a big country and it spans a lot of northwest latitude. So there's different climate in different areas. And yeah, when you're up in Giza where it's like super developed and everything, it's kind of like a dusty desert like industrial urban sort of wasteland. But when you get down here, it's pretty green, it's pretty beautiful. And obviously we're right on the Nile, so that explains a lot. I think when you get out into the country, it's not so much. But yeah, it's a cool little shot from the ship there.
Yeah, it turns into southern Libya real fast.
Right, exactly.
Not
Yeah.
not very hospitable. Right?
Northern Ethiopia.
Dude, we're gonna
But
see him, right?
this is this must be Kom Ombo, right? Because didn't we go to the ship and then we went to Kom Ombo at the second half of
Oh,
the
maybe
stay?
yeah. I was
Yeah,
sick for this.
I think so. Yeah, because this is the crocodile place.
Oh no,
What's the
no,
name
I'm
of
sorry. I went here. I
yeah,
was yeah. No, I
yeah,
was
you
here.
were here. What's this guy's name? Sirach, I think is his name, the crocodile god. But they have
Yeah, something like that.
mummified, yeah, they have mummified crocodiles here. And yeah, I thought this was a cool
Egyptians
little
really had to accentuate the glutes.
yeah,
You know,
that's
it
true.
really makes you think that's maybe some of our beauty standards. Some of them, not all of
Hmm.
them, but some of them may be objective. So I'm working out with Derek now, and it's so funny when he does squats. When he stands up in the squat, his butt just disappears. It's the funniest thing.
Yeah, I
I
do
got to
not
take
have
a
any
video of
butt.
your butt.
Well, that would be impossible. That would be like, taking a
Yeah,
photograph of a black hole. But
I need
that's
an
that's
electron microscope to take a video of your butt.
but that's the point of doing the squats is that someday in the future there will be
I
actually
know.
be a butt
Oh,
there.
you're getting there, and you're doing a great job. It's just funny. I want
Um,
to be encouraging. Also, it's really funny when your butt disappears. Okay, so
um,
what we got? Horus there on the right, and
yeah,
Thoth on the left, and they're probably coronating somebody.
yeah. I just thought this was really cool. I mean, how many pictures like that? You know what I mean? I have like 1,000 pictures like this, but I had to include some of them because just to give the impression that, you're walking around every single day and seeing tons of this stuff. And this is also what the dogs look like in Egypt, like still to this day. And there's a lot of them, stray dogs.
I'm just saying, I see the way I see this. I know I'm being annoying. The way I see this is the Egyptians. What we know is the dynastic Egyptians found these beautiful temples and did this work on them.
Hmm.
Even that, given their technology, dude, that's still really impressive.
Hmm.
Because we say there's tons and tons, millions of tons of granite or limestone. Dude, there's millions of these reliefs like this.
And of course, notice that this is high relief too, right? There,
Yeah,
whatever you would call it.
yeah.
This is, yeah. So they had
High
to
relief.
remove everything and leave this behind rather than carving, Thoth and Horus into the stone. They're leaving them there, and trying to, do that with all of these hieroglyphics
Yeah.
is pretty
I
cool.
mean, this alone for a culture coming out of the Stone Age is really good.
Right.
I'm impressed.
And we know that they did stuff like this, of course. I mean, because the Greeks did stuff like this too, right? Like later on, we're going to see like Philae Temple, which like that's the whole story of that place is that this is like basically an Egyptian site on an island in the Nile, but it's a Greek temple because they came along and it was there and they, did their thing to it, or, or they carried on the Egyptian tradition because they thought it was cool. Just in the same way that, we carry on various, pagan traditions or whatever in our Christian society because they're cool and they work, they melded them into their own thing.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, nothing works more than putting a tree up in your home.
Right.
That's pagan.
Yeah. Let's see what else we got here.
Hmm.
Yep. huge, weird machines, like
This
super
is
flat and
Karnak,
smooth.
right?
No, these are chronological. This must be Kom Ombo again.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're definitely chronological.
Yeah. So what's that? Some kind of granite or diorite?
Yeah, and I just remember this thing being insanely smooth at the top, and yeah, it's
Yeah, it
reflecting
looks
light.
smooth and flat. A lot
Yep,
of these things are really flat. I mean, I didn't take a look at all of them, but
yep, and it has this in it. It's just one of those things where it's like, you're really seeing something in progress here, and it's just like maybe this was a practice piece, like
well, this looks broken. Maybe.
yeah, and it's definitely, yeah, it's also definitely broken, but it's like, why is it there? Why is it in the temple? Like it's still on display in the temple. I don't know. I don't have answers about this kind of stuff, but it's just really cool.
I mean, my question is, Derek. I know I'm going to keep bringing it back to this, but my question is, okay, so we know if you are going to cut granite or diorite with copper,
Mhm.
we know the wear away rate for the copper. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, obviously you need to put quartzite in it, otherwise it's not going to be sharp enough to cut. So, given that, given how much we know would have to be worn away, I mean, how many just used copper saws would we see lying around worn away?
Right,
I'm guessing you'd see a lot
right.
because there's that huge thing, and then probably in the next little temple over, there's another huge granite diorite block like that. I mean, it is everywhere. It's just another thought I had. Anyway,
Yeah, and like you were saying last time, there's like really almost none of this on display, like in the Cairo Museum. Like you would expect to see, saws of all different shapes and sizes and
there's
whatever.
there's not a lot, I think the largest saw I said last time was 18 inches, and that's being generous.
Hmm.
That'd be more like 14. And it didn't look cut away. It didn't look like it was worn away. It looked like you maybe used it to cut wood.
Hmm.
I'm thinking.
So yeah, here's some mummified crocodiles. This is one of the things that this site is famous for. Is that yeah, this was a site where the crocodile god was worshipped by the dynastic Egyptians, and then yeah, it was taken over later. Like you can see here, this actually persisted into Greco-Roman times. Um, but yeah, they have thousands of mummified crocodiles on the island, and some of them are on display in a little museum here. Pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate the psychology of it. It's like just like everything's a different. Oh God, I got a lot of jokes coming up here. Let me finish this thought. They just have okay. So one of the negatives I think of Egyptian mythology is it's just a lot of disconnected gods. But I think that's kind of cool too, because you could see a bunch of people just roaming around in the Nile. Yeah, you see a crocodile. Okay, there's a god for that because that thing is freaking amazing, and we don't really have the scientific method, so we'll just call it a crocodile god. That's how
Hmm.
cool it is. And dude, you
Hmm.
go to the zoo if you didn't know where those animals came from or had no no information in your brain on zoology. Yeah, you go, oh, this is a stink beetle. Yeah, there's a stink beetle god because that thing is freaking incredible. That's something I can appreciate about Egyptian mythology is all these disconnected gods because yeah, just everything's cool.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But I mean, like, yeah, so today was basically like getting on the cruise ship, Edfu, Kom Ombo, cool places, got a couple cool little pics there. But really, like, the point of this day, logistics wise, in the trip was to get us onto the cruise ship, to get us sailing. Um, and then I think, if I remember correctly, this is where we hit that sort of lull. And this is also when you got sick, too, which, we can talk about if you want to. But, we got to this point in the trip where we're settling in. We've flown, we've been to a lot of different sites, a lot of long days, all stacked end on end, a lot of eating the same food over and over, right? A lot of having that same like mixed grill over and over
Well, dude,
again,
that's normal for me. So
which, yeah, I guess that's fine by you, but I got a little bit of sick of eating the same like meat over and over every day. But then what happened is that we had a dead day. And, you do have to kind of expect this. I mean, it's a very logistically complicated trip. So, whatever, no shade or anything. But we kind of had a day where we were just cruising on the ship and we were supposed to do a visit to a site and that got canceled. It got rescheduled to the next day. So we're still going to get there. Um, and yeah, we kind of had just like this down day where we just chilled out. But they did take us out later in that day on ships, and that's when we went to that beach along the Nile, and we got to actually like swim in the Nile, which was incredible. I peed in the Nile, so I was proud of that. And you did a pretty sick somersault off of like a little rock island, like over my head into the Nile. That was awesome.
It's called a flip, but yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, it's a somersault, whatever.
You're right.
You know what I mean? Like in the air. Like he wasn't like rolling around in the
Yeah, well,
beach,
that's what I was.
Um,
Yeah,
but yeah,
thanks for
that
checking to make sure I wasn't gonna hit my head on rocks or anything.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, but so that was fun. But then what wound up happening as a result of that is like, first of all, because like I was wearing swim trunks to go on this like excursion, I didn't bring my phone with me or anything. So I don't have any pictures of that. But rest assured, we did get to go on these cool boats. We did swim in the Nile. There were like Bob Marley guys like performing like in a jam band on the boats. And like Yusuf plays like three different instruments, and like Ben and the Snake Bros were jamming with them, and it was cool. That was like a fun little, unique little trip that we got to do there. Um, but it is kind of like a day that's not really accounted for in the pictures, because if I fast forward here, and now we're jumping 2 days into the future to one of the funniest parts of the whole trip,
And
which
this was
was
the day when we went out at the Aswan quarry. This is when I got sick. Some personal news.
oh, okay, yeah, you started
I
getting
remember
really sick
starting
this
to
day.
feel it here, and then going down that sun.
Hmm.
Oof. Yeah. Anyway, but this is awesome.
Yeah, you were really, yeah, that's right. This was a really hot day. This is when it started to like, yeah, get hot and a little bit tough.
Dude,
But
so this is the welcome video, or this is how they explain to you how they, what Aswan is, how they it's like an intro video.
right. So this is the only place that we went to that is
Dude,
like this. And you
yeah.
could, like no, Egypt is notorious. Like, Graham Hancock's not allowed to visit there. They have this like, Ministry of Antiquities that kind of like runs the show and maintains the official narrative about the Egyptians, and there's a little bit of like managing of the message that goes on there. But really, honestly, at least on the trip, the way that we were able to do it with awesome guides, and, Yusuf knows everybody and all that stuff. And, Ben is great at organizing everything. Like it was, we were able to go there as a non-traditional, sort of thinker, and not really get hassled too much, except for the one thing being this little room right here, which is literally like a deprogramming like camp, like from like Vietnam or something, where before you're allowed to visit the Aswan quarry, they first funnel you into this room and make you sit down and watch a movie. And it was just the funniest thing ever, because it's like they sit you down in this room with these movie theater seats, and there's these three screens here, and you're imagining like, oh, okay, so they're going to turn on a projector, they're going to play the
Oh yeah,
movie
they're
on
gonna.
this,
Yeah, exactly.
like they'll turn down the lights, they'll play the movie on this nice big
It's
screen, and then
so
these are
embarrassing.
these are like the auxiliaries for like subtitles, or
Right.
whatever, sign
Right.
language or whatever they need to do. But actually it's just like, no, they just like literally hit play on like a gold star DVD unit from Sam's Club or something, and then it only plays like in a little postage stamp sized like crop on this one TV.
I
It's like not
know,
even it's not even taking up this widescreen. It's Michael Scott's flat screen TV.
dude. Dude, and then the volume, it's just the speaker from the TV, and they crank it up to 100. So I mean,
Right.
it sounds like the adults in a Peanuts cartoon, like wow, wow,
Right.
wow. It's just
It's
all
Kazoo Cast.
yeah, total kazoo, dude.
So yeah, what they
Oh, it's
actually
so
play
Ricky
you
Dink.
and what they actually wind up playing you on the screen is a little clip from a National Geographic documentary with Zawi Hawass in it, talking about like, yeah, I guess I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't even remember because we were just laughing. It's like basically telling you the official story of how they
Yeah, yeah,
quarried
they're
the
telling
granite
you
here.
how they cut through this, or dug out huge granite blocks from this quarry with these diorite pounders.
Right. Yeah, so here's what the quarry actually looks like. This is a pretty representative shot. I mean, be sure to notice the people here. This is a full-grown human, man standing back here. Is two of them. This is really, really massive, just like channels of just pure, perfect granite that have been, carved out here, sort of slab by slab. So yeah, this is what the
Yeah.
quarry really looks like.
I mean, look at those cuts into the granite.
Hmm.
And yeah, they're huge.
Hmm.
I guess this won't really stand out so much as huge, but I'm sure you'll go to the unfinished obelisk. I mean, that's obviously incredible.
Right. Yeah. And so one thing to notice here is that, the different styles of cutting that's happening at the different places. So you look at an edge like this one right here, and this one right here, and you can see this is exactly the traditional story of how like primitive quarrying was done. You pound out these little individual channels. It looks like a
Hmm.
dotted line, right? And then you fill that in with planks of wood, and then you soak the wood with water, and it swells and creates
Hmm.
pressure that splits the stone. And then you muscle it out from there. And that's how you create these sorts of like big cuts. And that does work. That is how it was done. I mean, and especially when people came along later and like were stealing granite from sites, that were megalithic, or that were, antediluvian, or whatever you want to, word you want to use. You see a lot of this stuff. It's like this is what the thieves would use when they were coming along in the later day and doing their
Right.
primitive quarrying. But some of this stuff is not like that. There's other things which we'll look at here in a minute that do not have this same signature markings to it.
Right.
So then the question just becomes like, okay, well, how is that done? This is like the classic example. So this is
Yeah.
this
This
is
is it.
not this is not the unfinished obelisk, but this is the other kind of unfinished piece
Hmm.
at Aswan, which is actually in its own way potentially more interesting because it has these
Oh, yeah.
signature,
I think this is way more provocative.
yeah, is this has these signature scoop marks in it, as they're called, which some people don't really even like using the word scoop because even that is a little bit maybe misleading of what's actually going on here. This is one of
Yeah.
those
Chuck and Marty are
places.
calling them grind marks
Right, exactly.
because I
Yeah.
think some
So,
grinder came through. This wasn't like a scoop or softening of the stone. I mean, if that sounds crazy, yeah, there's a lot of theories like that about how they did this. But do you have any pictures of the diorite pounders?
mm,
Maybe later. Well, we'll get to it maybe.
I
But
don't think I have one in this set.
well, the whole idea is that there's these. So diorite's harder than granite. So yeah, you can technically remove granite by hitting it with these diorite pounders. But that whole theory rests on this idea that you use the gravity of the pounder, which is maybe 10 pounds,
Hmm.
to help you with the force, to break off the granite. Well, dude,
Right.
how are
So
you
how are
going to
you
do
doing
that?
this?
This is
Yeah.
going up. You're going upside down,
Right.
and it looks exactly the same. I mean, this is Chuck and Marty. I mean, that this sounds maybe kind of crazy, and I don't know if you have a picture of it, but the schist disc that's in the Carbon Museum.
Hmm.
It looks like they call it a lotus vase, and it looks like a propeller. Honestly, it looks kind of like a propeller, and it's made out of schist, which is one of these hard and also brittle stones.
Hmm.
Very fine stonework in this schist disc. Maybe I have a picture of it. I don't know. Let me see. Probably. Oh no, but I do have a picture of that other unfinished vase. I'd like to show it at some point. Well, it's kind of off topic, but and damn, what was I talking about? Oh
Well, you
yeah,
were just
this
talking about,
schist.
yeah, and how like, pounders wouldn't explain this kind of thing.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. So Chuck and Marty, they think that the schist disc is a model for
Hmm.
a grinder that would make a tool mark that looks like this.
Hmm.
And obviously, they're saying, look, it's just speculation. We don't know, but they went and measured the schist disc. It's about as wide as this would be. What they were talking about is that little, it looks like a little ridge right on the crevice, right on
Hmm.
the smallest crevice in these scoop marks. Yeah, right around there. They say that would be like the end, like the rounded end of the schist disc.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can kind of tell, like right here, for example, like it just has this distinctive sort of like radius
Yeah.
that happens like right here. And so, yeah, just to paint a picture, like if you can't really tell what this is, like imagine you're trying to extract an obelisk from the quarry, right? So, what you see is you have this huge piece of granite, which is the piece that you're trying to quarry. That would be like this, like the top half of this picture. And you're trying to remove that, right, from the rest of the rock. So what you see at 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 Aswan, like down here in this sort of like channel, is this sort of perimeter that goes all around the piece of rock that they were trying to extract, and the entire way around it is all scooped out like this, as if the way that you were to complete the quarrying were to somehow like break this off at its like thinnest point here that you've created by making all of these scoops like this. I mean, if you just try to think about it logistically, like even with a team of thousands of men, I mean, it's not really about the manpower. It's just like, how did this work? Like, what were they doing? Like, what is this methodology? It's very interesting. And you know, the thing that Aswan is really famous for is this guy right here, which is the unfinished obelisk. This thing is 1,300 tons, right? I have the number right there.
It's about that, yeah.
Yeah, it's unfathomably huge. I mean, you literally cannot capture it in a picture. I mean, this does no justice to it at all. And down here in this channel is exactly what I'm talking about. It's all like partially extracted, but just sort of left there. I mean, the theory is that it must have developed this crack at some point, and that's the reason why they just never finished
Now, at use of
extracting
things,
it.
he thinks the crack developed later.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm not so sure that they. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I'm not really so sure that this
Hey,
crack
Derek, can you
just.
go back to the previous picture?
Yeah.
There's an interesting point here, just to describe yeah, just how impossible this is.
Hmm.
So, it's kind of obvious, but I think it's worth saying here is that so in order to get a granite obelisk out of the ground, you have to dig underneath
Hmm.
the granite. So you don't just go in the thickness of the obelisk, you got to go down another couple feet.
Hmm.
So if they did cut this out or grind this out or pound this out with those diorite pounders, one guy's entire life would have just been not carving out the obelisk, but just carving out enough space in the granite so they could get under the obelisk like this.
Yeah, and the other thing about this that is kind of related, which makes no sense to me, is like, you know, we showed in the previous episode the like the pillowy shape of the like unfinished granite blocks, like the facing stones on the pyramid at
Right.
Giza. um and we showed how like there's this theory where like, you know, they would purposefully quarry out these blocks with like extra rock still on them, which was sort of like the packing material that would be like removed and flattened out and
Yeah,
polished
one
later.
theory. Well, one theory
Yeah,
about that is who knows.
yeah,
Yeah, the
which is
cow
like,
rest, they were saying that.
right.
Yeah, maybe.
But like you never see these ridges on anything other than here at the quarry, right? Like it's as if like this is another piece of the process. Like imagine that they were quarrying this stone to use it as like casing stones on a pyramid. It's like uh,
Well,
I
I
don't know.
think what we see something like this, or maybe a similar kind of tool. Yeah, we do see scoop marks, not this big, but we do see scoop marks that could be like this at the Assyrian. We see
Mm-hmm.
them on the granite casing stones in the Menkaure pyramid. Um, I think you see them in a bunch of places.
It's just weird to me. Like, why does it have this like ridged nature to it? It's like if this is a tool, right? Then that
Because it
means
was a
that it's
circular grinder, like this schist disc. I think that's an interesting theory.
right. Yeah. So that means that it's like a tool that is approximately this wide, right? And
Yeah.
then you're just kind of doing it like side by side over and over again, kind of like doing, you know, the rows of your lawn with a lawnmower.
Yeah, and Chuck and Marty said they went back to the Cairo Museum afterwards, after we went to the Aswan Quarry, and they said, yeah, the schist disc would be about this size. I don't
Crazy.
know. Who
That's
knows?
crazy.
We don't know for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, here's the unfinished obelisk. Obviously, another interesting thing about it, which is you can see at a lot of different parts of the quarry, is this little sort of like checkerboard scooping pattern. There's other places where you're just walking aroand on the granite, you know, like
You see it
an
all over
area
the
like
place.
this,
Yeah.
and you see a lot of this kind of stuff. But yeah, just very interesting to contemplate how that might have been done.
And again, that's something you got when we talk about the Serapeum here, probably in a bit, and or when we're at the Temple of Edfu in that huge granite box with the pyramid on top, the same
Hmm.
one that we find at Elephantine Island.
Yep.
How deep do you have to dig into a granite mountain to get a solid piece of granite like that?
Right.
It's not on the surface.
Right.
You got to dig in at least a few meters. I don't know. I overheard some of the guys talking about it. I obviously don't know, but
Well, you can kind of see it right here, actually. Like you can see how high this wall goes. This actually goes up higher over on this side. Like, yeah, you're kind of down in it over here. And one of the
yeah,
other things
there's
that's
a
all
lot of
over,
granite taken away. There's a lot of granite we don't see here.
right, Right. And one of the other things that you see at this site is these like pits, these shafts that were basically, I mean, the theory is that they were like test shafts,
Oh, dude,
shafts.
do you have a picture of the one? I have a
I
picture. I think that's worth showing.
okay, yes. If you have it, pull it up. I'll stop sharing. But yeah, that's like how they would test to see before they would go through all this work. They had to try to like get a core sample out, basically, like what they do on glaciers nowadays, to see like if it was actually pure granite down underneath, or if there was some sort of like flaw or crack that they were going to run into.
Yeah, I got it here.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing.
All right. Now I'm going to damn. Dude, do I click the big square share screen button?
Nah,
Okay, cool.
probably not.
All right, this is what,
Oh, perfect. Yep.
and you have my feet in there for the, yeah, my feet in there. So it's about a foot by a foot.
Hmm.
And you can't really see how deep that goes, but that one that we saw, it went what, maybe 7 or 8 feet deep.
Yeah, it's scary deep.
Yeah, yeah. Like you don't want to fall in.
Hmm.
And so, how do you use those diorite pounders? Which I guess I don't really have. Uh, well, I mean, just picture a block of diorite about the size of an ostrich egg, maybe a little bit bigger.
Right. And you're kind of bouncing it like a basketball, to
Yeah,
basically, just, yeah, abrade away the stone, bounce by bounce.
yeah. Okay, I'll stop sharing and go back.
Okay. All right. Well,
So,
we're
do we
getting
even have to say? Does it go without saying? How do you use a diorite pounder to dig one of those narrow holes like that? That's a foot by a foot.
right. Right. Exactly.
It's silly.
All right. Well, we got one more kind of, I would say, without taking anything away from it, we got one more sort of smallish day to get through here before we get into really the grand finale of the trip. I mean, the last like 3 or 4 days of the trip were just absolute stunners. But this is moving on to um, Philae Temple, which is an island on the Nile. There's several of these, just like really cool. I mean, you can see it right here. These really cool, basically like granite islands in the middle of the Nile. And these are the types of boats that we were cruising around on. There's a lot of these.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not sure they would pass emission standards in America.
yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I hope you all
Yeah,
like gas fumes.
Gavin Newsom would not be happy about those engines.
No, yeah. The migraine sufferers, you might want to just stay on the boat on these days because,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, they
those,
were so smoky. I was turning into Greta Thunberg on there. Like, yeah, but maybe we should just get rid of capitalism if it makes engines like this. That's actually a good point. She's onto something.
yeah, 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 engines in Africa will do that to you.
Yeah.
It's dirty. Yeah, just a cool column. I don't know. I don't have a lot specific to say about Philae Temple. I kind of mentioned it already earlier. It was taken over by the Greeks. And the most notable thing about it mainly is just that it's like on a beautiful island and you kind of, cruise on the Nile to get there. It does have cool reliefs, huge reliefs like this carved into the front of the temple. And it has this very interesting granite piece, which is the only piece still there that's like this. But to
That is
me, like,
cool.
yeah, this was very suggestive of the idea that this might have been what it all originally looked like, and then for whatever reason, like this other structure was put around it, because this was clearly like out front, but it was the only piece like this that was remaining.
Dude, people have been in the Nile Valley building stuff for 50,000 years.
Yeah,
That's what I want to say without any real evidence.
right.
All right,
and
I'm
and
sorry, continue.
no, yeah, I mean, and that's really worth bearing in mind. I mean, the official narrative about the pyramids is that they're what, 4,000 BC, something like that.
Yeah, 4,500 BC or
Yeah.
2,500 BC, 4,500 years ago.
Oh yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, even more recent. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of unfathomable the amount of time. I mean, and that's true with a lot of sites. I mean, that's Göbekli Tepe is what, 10,000 years old, 9,000 years old.
Yeah.
um the caves of Altamira is another big one that's mentioned in Dawn of Everything. I mean, they think that people lived in the caves of Altamira for 20,000 years. It's just like, the time scales that we're talking about are really unfathomable.
Right.
um Yeah, and then the pyramids are like, we think of them as being like the oldest, one of the oldest things that we have. Um, but yeah, Philae Temple is beautiful. It's extremely refined, because it's newer. I mean, this is like Greek stuff. It's hard to attribute each of these things to a specific civilization. I'm going to just assume this is Greek stuff. I mean, first of all, the column is built in pieces. So it's kind of like it's able to be more intricate and more sophisticated looking because from an engineering perspective, it's actually less challenging. It's like, more sort of filigreed, more, form, not function, if you will. But still really cool. And I mean, and again, this lintel piece is absolutely enormous. So that was, pretty awe inspiring also.
Yeah.
This gives you a good sense of like one of these granite islands. I mean, it's just this sort of like very cool, kind of bubbly, um, curvaceous granite. And it's like enormous. Here's a full sized boat, just to give you a sense of scale. It's
Is
pretty
that a
cool.
batholith?
I don't know what that means. So I'm going to say yes.
It's just like a way that granite forms. It forms in these lava magma. No, it would be magma packets underneath the ground, and it cools and is pushed to the surface, and it creates
Yeah.
a shape like that. There's a bunch of them in Joshua Tree.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what's going on
I think
here.
I remember talking about it. It's like that if Harry Potter had a speech impediment and he was saying basilisk,
Right.
batholith.
Good one.
Yeah.
I think this is moving on to Elephantine Island. You were sick this day. I'm on my own here.
Yeah, and I wasn't.
Yep, here we are. This is
Yeah,
Elephantine Island. Yeah, sorry, dude. I don't want to give you FOMO or anything, but you missed out on Elephantine Island. I mean,
dude, look at that. It looks just like the roof of Hathor.
yeah, you can see over here it has that exact same marking.
What
Yeah.
the f, dude?
And
Ah,
again, it doesn't really make any sense. I mean, it's not like this would be useful,
yeah,
like if
what
a
is
wall was
that?
standing here or something. It doesn't really make any sense.
Dude, that's
Uh,
the thing about going to Egypt is you have at least a couple moments a day when you're like, dude, what? Like it hurts your brain. It's
yeah.
impossible. I said that on the trip. It's like looking at things that shouldn't be there.
Yep.
Like this is impossible. This is ridiculous. No, this doesn't exist, but it does, and it's there, and it just makes you, yeah, have the like reactions like that.
Well, you're setting up a great segue here because, yeah, speaking of things that should not exist, this is this sort of like, graveyard of granite or whatever you want to call it. I mean, it looks like a dumping site
Yeah,
at Elephantine Island. I really don't know what it is, but this thing right here,
yeah,
this is that same whatever it is, alcove, temple, box, whatever word you would want to choose for whatever
right.
this thing is. It's basically the same as the one that we saw, the glossy looking thing in Edfu Temple, but it's like tipped over on its side, and it's just I can't describe it. It's one of the most like just amazing things that we saw on the whole trip, just because it's so weird. I mean, Elephantine Island is this relatively obscure site. I mean, I don't think most tourists really go there, and it has lots of cool shit. I mean, you can just kind of wander around and look at all of these rocks. But as a temple, as a thing in and of itself, it's relatively normal. And then just for whatever reason, there's just this thing here tipped on its side. I just no idea how or why. I mean, maybe there was something here that just like crumbled into pieces at some point. Um, but this edge right here, which Ben is holding his iPad up to, is like that critical piece that I was mentioning earlier, where it's like chiseled into a semblance of roundness, and then like halfway up, it's like fully smoothed and turned into like a perfect curve. It's just kind of unbelievable. Here's a
Look at
little
the
bit.
so-called roof on that. Can you go back for a second?
Yeah.
Look at the roof. I
Hmm.
mean, just notice those straight lines.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I mean, do we
insanely
even need a straight
geometric.
edge to show that that's 100% straight? I mean, that, man,
Hmm.
it's amazing. Okay, but you're going to go to the facets.
Yeah. So here you can really see it.
Oh
I
yeah,
hope I hope that
yeah,
comes
good,
across
good
nicely
photo.
with the YouTube compression here. But like, yeah, down on this edge, you can see that it's chiseled into like one, two, three, four, whatever, like facets that are kind of going around. And right above where
Yeah,
Ben is touching it, like this is perfectly rounded. And you can see like right here, this is like the transition into unfinished work. It's that
Yeah.
same recurring theme of just like,
It,
why did they stop there?
it's crazy, dude, because I was sick. I was on the boat. And so I didn't feel that. But just by looking at that close up, I know exactly what that feels like.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Yeah. And this is not like nothing, either. This is not limestone or anything. I mean, this hurts if you touch your fingernails to this stone, it hurts. Like it sends like a nerve, pain up your fingers because this
Like when you
is
hit a baseball on the wrong
yeah,
part of a bat, it's like you don't
yeah,
hit on the sweet spot. That's what it's like when you come up and slap it like you're slapping on the ass. It sucks.
yeah.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
not fun.
ridiculously hard, unworkable granite. And it's not just like, oh, it's granite. It's like, pure, like beautiful, like, it's just like you can see the quality of it. You can see the huge
Yeah.
chunks of
Well,
feldspar in it.
I mean, like how, well, like when it, you know, when it erodes like that,
Hmm.
but those granite rocks Chuck was pointing out, that's what makes it difficult to cut through because there's different levels of hardness and the different pieces and the different minerals that make up the granite.
Right,
So it's not like you're cutting just through one stone.
right. And again, I mean, there's multiple different things that are just incredible about this thing. This is Dror, our buddy from Israel. What's up,
What's
dude?
up?
If he's watching. um but yeah, not only does it have that amazing edge on it that we were just looking at, but also this is something that Ben points out in some of his Uncharted X videos. These holes also are just unbelievable, because I wish I had a little bit better picture of it, but if you're looking at this thing in 3D, this tube drill hole right here is perfectly aligned. Like the outermost edge, like over here, is perfectly
Mm-hmm.
aligned with this flat surface right here. So if you imagine like you're trying to like, operate a drill that's
Yeah.
making something that's perfectly flush with this edge, like perfectly parallel to it into the
Impossible, dude.
stone, like there's no room. You don't have room to work that. You would need some sort of offset, like with a bearing or something, so that you could
Yeah.
offset the drill and actually operate it, presuming that you operate it manually. I mean, who knows? But it's just, I guess like the simplest explanation we can come up with this is these holes are here to serve as some sort of like hinge, like there's some sort of door or something that has a pin on it that goes into these holes,
Mm-hmm.
or there's something that like turns that goes in here. I don't know what, but just the holes themselves make no sense. It's just
Yeah,
I don't
and there are
know.
holes like that all over Egypt.
Yeah.
Karnak was full of holes like that, and doorways much larger than that.
Hmm.
Yeah, but same kind of thing, flushed with a corner there
And
on both
obviously,
sides.
obviously, you can see that this thing is just like, ridiculously geometrically precise. It has this
Yeah,
like inner lip on it. It has this sort of like bench piece or whatever you would call this inside of it. It's just unbelievable. Um,
yeah,
this was another one of those situations where, like, if you were on any other tour, you would have been standing up here. But after a little while, schmoozing this guy a little bit, like eventually we all got to go down in here and like climb up into this thing and everything. It was so cool.
yeah. If you're gonna go to Egypt, just go with Ben and those guys.
Yeah,
You're
definitely.
not gonna regret it.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't even gotten to the Sphinx yet, but I mean, that's the ultimate
Or
example of
the
that. Like,
freaking pyramids, or the
yeah,
Serapeum.
yeah. I mean, like I said, yeah, you really still have not seen anything yet, because we're getting to the last couple of days of the trip here, and this is when it really just popped off. So that was Elephantine Island. It was beautiful. We spent like the whole evening there. I got some good like sunset pictures there and stuff. It was really cool. But this is the next day. This is Dashur. So now, refresh my memory. This is us flying back to Cairo, right? Didn't we do that? And then we drove to Dashur from Cairo.
Yeah, this is up in Lower Egypt.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, that's right. So this is the bent pyramid.
yeah,
Uh,
you on a clear day, you probably can see the Great Pyramids, the three pyramids at Giza from these.
Yes. Yeah. I hope I have a picture of that. I think that I do. Because
You
yeah,
could
you can
definitely see the
definitely.
Saqqara one from these.
Mhm. Yes, definitely. Yeah, that's an interesting thing about the pyramids in Lower Egypt, is that each pyramid site is visible from the other pyramid sites. And some people think that that's significant. Like maybe they were transmitting electricity to each other or something like that, because they have a line of sight.
Dude, dude, I know. Tesla.
Yeah. But yeah, this is the Black Pyramid, which is mostly destroyed. We didn't visit it up close, but you could see it on the horizon.
Yeah,
This is
that's a mud brick pyramid.
mm-hmm,
That's what the dynastics built.
mm-hmm, right,
And it's impressive that they're able to build it, but that's what it ends up looking like.
right, right. It's totally different. Yeah, and you can even see from its silhouette that it's mostly destroyed.
Yeah,
Uh,
completely. Yeah, mostly destroyed. Not a pyramid.
yeah,
Just
this
a
is the
mound of
bent
rocks.
pyramid, and I'm standing basically at the red pyramid, which is the
Mm-hmm.
other big boy at Dashur. Like, this is another one of those things, like little Egypt travel, like pro tip. Like, if you ever go to Egypt, obviously you're probably going to go to Giza. It's a complete madhouse. But as you can see from this picture, like if you make the extra effort to go to Dashur, like it's pretty dead. And the pyramids are just as impressive, if not more so. They're amazing.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit smaller than the Great Pyramid, but it's essentially the same experience. And you get to walk around it, and nobody bothers you. You're all alone.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was deserted when we were there. It was awesome.
It was just us, the guys on the trip, and we were like looking at each other. This is freaking amazing.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, this is one of the faces of the red pyramid at Dashur. You can see the smoothed facing stones there, casing stones there. Good pick of me and you on the corner. Yeah, this site is like, it's not really a tourist site. I mean, the corners of the pyramid are still just kind of like buried in rubble. I mean, this thing is not really even sufficiently
I know.
like excavated.
Dude,
Like
it's so sad.
there's like a lot more work to do at
I
this
mean, this
site.
is
It's
one of
kind
the
of
top
crazy.
5 greatest archaeological sites in the world, and it's covered in debris.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
It's like they're not done figuring it out yet. It's amazing.
I know.
Here we go. Okay, so before I jump the gun here,
Yeah.
the story of this day is that we were able to enter both of these pyramids, the bent pyramid and the red pyramid, and they both have, first of all, very challenging passageways that you have to, crouch and crawl your way through. But they have these incredible corbelled rooms inside of them, and corbel is the name of this like pattern here, this sort of like step pattern. This is really hard to capture on film. I don't, or to capture in a picture. But yeah, you go through this enormous, like, subterranean pyramid passageway, and then you're inside of this dank, scary, like inner sanctum, and you just emerge into this room that
Yeah. What is
it
this?
shouldn't be there. It doesn't make sense. It's very profound and weird to just emerge into one of these places. So yeah,
Yeah,
this is a picture of what it looked like inside of one of the rooms.
man.
It's hard to capture. This is a better shot. So when you come out, you come out through this passageway right here, and notice this stone right here.
Yeah. This is a second corbelled room in the Red Pyramid,
Um,
because the
yeah,
first one was on the other side of that shaft, and now you walk up through on the stairs that they have to go up to the third room that is up above these 2 lower rooms.
that's right. Yep, there's
Yeah.
3 kind of rooms total. Yeah, this is like looking up at the ceiling inside of the first one. Then you go through a little passageway, you come out here, and you're inside of the second one, which is really the big one. And then the big one has a wooden structure that was built by modern man inside of it that allows you to climb up and get to this third area that we'll look at in a minute. But yeah, again, just an incredible corbelled room here that, there's not carvings on the wall of this thing. There's not some sort of, there's nothing in it. There's no tomb there. I mean, we don't know what this thing is. I mean, you might know more about this than me, but this is just mysterious, right?
Dude, nobody knows.
Yeah.
It is, yeah. What is it? Burial chambers? Okay, why are there 3? And by the way, supposedly the same pharaoh Snefru built both the Red Pyramid, the Ben Pyramid, and one that we didn't see, which is the Pyramid at Maidum.
Right. Within like a period of like 30 years or so.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah, it makes no
there's
sense.
no way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And
I mean,
this,
they break it down. It looks like, okay, if he did that, then he'd have to put a stone down in place and it's something like 2 or 3 minutes.
right.
You have
Right.
to cut, yeah, quarry, cut, and align perfectly, even these corbel rooms. There's yeah, but you were saying about that rock above
Yeah.
the passageway there.
Yeah, I mean, just take note of this stone right here. I mean, you notice that it's basically, I don't know, 6 times as large as any of the other ones. Um, and it's positioned here very deliberately, right? Like it's the one that is offset over this thing. It forms the ceiling of the passageway through which you emerge.
Yeah, and it's about three, maybe 3.5 feet thick,
Right. If you're
deep.
going, yeah, if you're inside of this passage that this guy is emerging from right here, you'll see that, yeah, this rock goes back, yeah, 3.5, 4 feet. It's ridiculously massive, indescribably massive compared to all of the other ones that you're seeing here. And the thing about this, spoiler alert, like almost every other pyramid chamber that we're going to talk about for the rest of this entire slide deck, they all have a rock like this, and nobody knows why. It's
Well,
just
well,
completely
especially, I mean, I have a good comparison. We'll get to it, but especially between this and the Red Pyramid and then the Great Pyramid,
right. Which is,
it's
you know,
exactly
which
the
is
same.
in
And the rocks around it, the stones that they put around it, all the same dimensions.
right. And I mean, and that's in Giza. I mean, that's a completely different site, different builders, like different everything. I mean, as far as we know. Um, so yeah, this just I haven't seen a lot of people discuss this. I haven't seen anybody discuss this really. I mean, I don't go as deeply into this as you do. This is literally something that I think that just me and you noticed because we just started looking around and we were like, what the hell is this rock?
No, because I
And
was
then
talking about it with Chuck or Marty or one of those guys. So we weren't the only ones, but yeah, people are talking about this.
yeah,
It's not just us. But yeah, I
it's
mean, why aren't we just dropping everything and trying to figure this out before we do anything else? I mean, that's what
yeah,
I want to know.
yeah. And I mean, you
But
don't
dude,
have
it's not
to.
even an excavated site because there's debris piled up 50 feet on the side of this freaking pyramid.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Because
very
Egypt's a
weird.
failed state. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the logistics to do something like this. That's why we need to go in and take over Egypt. So we, for the sake of archaeology, hey, keep your freaking oil. I don't care.
This is Diz 2028. Everybody keep it
this
in
is this
mind.
is my platform. Yeah,
That's you right there, by the way. Pretty sure.
yeah. Oh yeah, looks like me.
So yeah, so I'm standing up on this like wooden structure that they built here to climb up and get into the third chamber of the Red Pyramid. Here's a shot looking up again, just to give you an impression of just, you know. So again, this is inside of that pyramid. It's just I don't know what else to say about it. It's just you're in here and you're just thinking like, how is this here?
And
How
how
did they
high
do
is
this?
that? Like 50 feet?
Yeah,
Maybe not that high.
no, I mean it was high.
I
I mean
think
you're
in the
going,
bent pyramid, honestly, it might have been 70 feet.
you
We'll
go up
we'll show pictures of
multiple,
that, but
yeah, you go up multiple flights of stairs, like these wooden stairs here, like multiple
yeah.
flights, several stories high. There's a closer up view of one of those stones again, just to give the idea. So like, yeah, this is a man's head right here. You know, I mean, this thing is enormous. I mean, not to mention the fact that the precision, the geometric precision of the corbeling here, you know, to get it to look like this is just
And I was
incredible.
doing measurements on that corbling with my finger, and obviously, that's not an exact measurement, but it seemed the edge of the corbel seemed to come out to the same exact crease on my
Hmm.
finger whenever I did it.
Yeah.
Like it seemed perfect. Obviously, I don't know. I didn't have a super accurate ruler there, but
And again, like now I'm getting into just like I don't know, like hype, like advertising territory here, but like you literally have not seen anything yet because the Grand Gallery is just like blows this out of the water. I mean,
yeah,
it's just like it gets like exponentially, compoundingly more amazing as we get towards the end
yep.
here. So yeah, this is a cool shot from outside the Red Pyramid with the Bent Pyramid in the background. The Bent Pyramid is a complete mystery unto itself. The conventional narrative is that they started building it up at this angle, this steeper angle here, and then somewhere along the way realized that it wasn't going to work structurally, so then changed the angle and started building it this way. There's no particular reason to think that that's true, really. But I mean, that's the story. It's just I don't know. It's just
Yeah,
weird,
maybe. Although at the same time, it's the most advanced building I've ever been in. So
right? Um,
Something
It's
else that maybe will come up in these pictures here that Chuck and Marty were talking about, and I noticed actually, I didn't really say anything, but I swear I totally noticed this, is that sometimes when you're going down some of these passageways in the pyramids, and I'm sure you have a picture of them, that the blocks on the side, the limestone blocks on the side are aligned. They're at the same angle as the passageway. And other times they're not. Other times they're horizontal.
mm-hmm,
What?
right.
I mean, just one of those extra things you just like, wait, what? That again, it's impossible. Like you wouldn't you not do it that way? Wouldn't you have it all one way? I don't know, man.
I don't know. Yeah, so this is a corner of the bent pyramid. Um, yeah, just to give you an idea what it looks like up close. It has a little bit of supporting structure, built into it. This is more modern. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, here's a little bit closer up. That same corner here, you can see how straight the edge is with these facing stones on it,
Yeah,
casing
lined up with that
stones.
really straight guy there.
Yeah, that's this dork over here. But yeah, this was pretty crazy. I mean, I'm not saying like it's perfect. I mean, obviously, like if you put a straight edge right here, I'm not saying that it's perfect, but it is
Yeah, it's
remarkable
pretty.
regardless.
Yeah, that shot of the bent pyramid, that last one that you showed from a bit of a distance, it really kind of makes it look dinky. But then you have put people up there. It
Hmm.
doesn't look kind of dinky. I don't know. But then that, it's like, oh, geez. Look, I'm as tall as like two courses in that pyramid. It's just
Right.
amazing. Yeah, so this is more 70 feet, maybe. Then that's in the okay. Yeah.
And the thing about the chamber inside of the bent pyramid, which we're looking at here, so this is that like modern wooden scaffolding staircase that I was describing a minute ago. But the thing about this chamber, it's corbelled on all four sides, so it's going
Yeah.
up in this stair step shape on all four sides. Whereas the one that we just saw in the red pyramid, it's flat on two of its sides. Um, so that yeah,
Yep.
this one is even kind of crazier. This was really dicey going up these stairs. I mean, I did have to tell myself, like, okay, stop thinking about the construction of these stairs because they are rickety as hell. And they're just kind of like friction fitted into the walls here. Like, oh yeah, we'll just jam some beams into the walls here. It'll be fine.
Dude. Well, I gotta say, I mean, yeah, that's your lived experience. My lived experience is I was in a calm yet elated mood in these pyramids.
Yeah. Well, I
I
mean,
can't
look at
describe
this.
it.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think this would do to you? I mean, come on. This is just this is looking up at the top, like the peak
What is
of that
that
room. I
about?
mean, and it's just you can't believe how perfect this thing is. I mean, to think that this thing is, even by the official narrative, even if you believe just the totally mainstream narrative, this is 4,000 years old. It's unbelievable. It's just completely perfect, rectangular, and even like the roof here, or whatever you would want to call
Yeah,
this,
look at those blocks.
like you're
Look
just
at that
seeing
seam.
perfectly flat, perfectly lined up, fitted together, straight edges on these blocks is just
Which, to be
completely
fair,
unreal.
isn't true of every part of the interior of every pyramid.
Hmm.
Maybe you have some pictures in the Great Pyramid where it's not that well done. A
Right.
lot of it is really well done, clearly, but
Right. Yeah, I mean the parts that nobody was ever going to see or that a human was never going to get into nominally are obviously imperfect because what's the point? But actually, that's again just to kind of hype up what we have coming up later. I mean, me and you got to basically go into a shaft inside of the Queen's Chamber that is not that is a locked gate that is not supposed to be opened. But we got in there, and yeah, I mean that's not perfect. You're just seeing the raw internals of the pyramid there, but this is obviously planned out and perfect and precise and
that
just
that had to
yeah,
be precise for some reason.
yeah.
And maybe that reason, I know I'm not the first one to say this, maybe that reason is it was so incredibly easy for them it didn't matter.
And yeah, other people would say it had some function of some sort. I have no
Maybe.
idea.
I don't know.
No idea. Okay, so now we're moving on to Saqqara. Let's do a time check here because we're getting into, we're starting to get into the home stretch here. We
Oh,
get
wait, I got a couple photos of the red/bent pyramid.
okay, sweet. Yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna stop sharing.
I'm not going to Okay, check out this. Okay, so this is from the Red Pyramid. All right, this is just my version of that. Pretty cool, whatever. And this is from the Red Pyramid. There's the block.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, I mean, I'm gonna show this again later when we go through the Great Pyramid, but that's cray. Look at the weathering outside the Red Pyramid. I mean, look at the weathering on this limestone. And stuff like that is all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. You talk to some of these guys, and they would say that that weathering like that would take. I mean, to put how Chuck would say it, it just takes a long time. And there's one more from the Bend Pyramid. I don't know, kind of cool. All
Oh
right, that's
wow.
it. I just
Yeah,
wanted to
that's cool.
show those. Okay. Oh, okay, go for it.
Okay. All right. So should we get into Saqqara here?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, you're good on time. I'm gonna resume sharing.
8:27. Yeah, I'm cool for a little bit.
I'm skeptical we're gonna get through the rest of the trip because there's so much awesome shit like in the last 2 days.
Well, it's
Yeah,
okay. Maybe we
there's
can do a part three later and then just some of our final thoughts.
right. Yeah, we'll
I'm
do
okay
like
with
a
that.
separate, wrap up or something. Yeah, and actually maybe what I'll do for part three is I'll go back and try to fill in any gaps too. Like I'll go over my pictures again, and if there's stuff that we think wasn't really totally represented, we can go back. Because like for example, we saw a bunch of stuff like just there at Dashur, we saw a bunch of stuff like in the chambers that we still haven't really shown a bunch of photos of yet. But but that kind of leads into this next day, which is at Saqqara. So this is another pyramid site. It has this famous step pyramid here, which this is older, right? Isn't that the official story?
This was supposedly the Egyptians' first attempt at building a pyramid.
Right.
And you look at this, and this is mud brick, and you think, yeah, this is what they were building in the third dynasty, of course. But why are they building it here? I think we're going to get to it. They're building it over something in particular that probably had a some meaning for them.
Right. I mean, because weirdly, the most notable thing at Saqqara at this site is not really this pyramid. It's, what's underneath it. There's a bunch of like tunnels and passageways underneath it, which we'll look at in a second. And then B, the Serapeum, which I think maybe that'll be a good closer for today is to look at the Serapeum pictures.
Very cool.
But yeah, so this is down in the tunnels underneath the step pyramid. And one thing that's notable is that there's a lot of pieces of stone jars and other artifacts that are still like actually in place and like have been left down here. This is still considered like a relatively active like site for research. Not everybody gets to go here. There's parts down here where you're not allowed to take pictures still, and there's like actual guards on duty and all that stuff. But yeah, this is me holding a piece of a stone jar that's still in place down there. And it's unbelievable. I mean, I think you can tell just from how it looks in my
Unbelievable.
hand. I mean, it's just ridiculously smooth, just insanely hard. I mean, almost like a gem. It almost feels like you're holding a gemstone, like the
Yeah.
hardness and the purity of this stone. And it's basically translucent. I don't think I have a picture of this, but we were holding our phone lights like our iPhones up to this with the light turned on, and you can see it shining
Yeah,
through
it's like shining
the
through your
stone.
ear or
It's
something.
just, yeah. So this was completely crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so now when you get down into these chambers underneath the step pyramid, again, this is one of those things. So this is a human standing up here on this little platform. I mean, this
Yeah.
thing is, I don't know.
I think this chamber is 70 feet high.
I was just gonna say this. I would estimate this shaft might be like 80 feet. Okay, yeah,
And
70
that
feet.
person up on that platform, they're below the main level. I mean, clearly,
Right.
of
Right.
course.
Yeah. Like this is ground level above them over their
So how
heads.
much lower are we than they are? And we still went down one level beyond this or lower than
Right.
this.
Right.
We
And
had to
what we're
take a ladder
looking at,
down.
right here, like this thing that's in the foreground, is this was impossible to capture on video because it's huge. It's this big cubical arrangement of these giant granite blocks that are sort of tetrised together into this three-dimensional sort of structure. Where if you look at it from above, you can see the way that it's all kind of fitted together like puzzle pieces. And there's even like a round, like cylindrical, like pin shaped granite piece that runs through it all. It's just We don't
Yeah.
know what it is. Nobody knows what it is, and it's just mind blowing that it's down there.
Well, something that uh, Kyle said that I thought was interesting is this is what the king's chamber is. It is a chamber of granite within a limestone pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of the same thing. It's a chamber of grandstone of excuse me of granite, granite and limestone, granstone. It's a chamber of granite within this limestone bedrock. Obviously, it's not connected like it is in the pyramid, but I don't know that kind of a switch went off in my brain when he said that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that is kind of similar. Anyway,
This is another shot of it, just like from what it looks like from a different angle. I mean, I'm still not really capturing the
yeah,
magnitude of this thing. It's really hard to capture, but you can see here, like even this, like these pieces have refined elements to them. It has this lip on it for some reason. Nobody really knows. Now, some
and
people
this
do
was
think,
blown apart. So that crease there to the left on that
mhm,
piece with the lip on it, it's broken in half.
right, right. We believe that this was destroyed intentionally and then reassembled by archaeologists or whatever at some
Yeah, it
point,
was
you know, in
reassembled, I
history.
think, relatively recently. They did a bunch of work on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, before we move on, so yeah, this is that's just a couple random snapshots from inside of the chambers underneath the step pyramid. There was a lot down here. I like, you know, there was a big Serapeum type box that was made out of alabaster that was down here, which
Yeah,
was
we're
pretty
just
cool.
missing so much. Yeah,
Yeah.
and we were down like five floors, five levels. I mean,
Hmm.
man, were we even at the bottom level? I don't even know.
You could definitely get lost down there. I mean, that's the other
Oh
thing is
yeah,
that yeah, this was a little bit, you know, maze like for sure.
it's like you're in a level in Doom 2.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, let's this will probably maybe be the last thing that we cover today, which is the Serapeum. So, I mean, this was literally one of the most special things that we were able to do on the
Look
entire
at
trip.
this thing.
And
Yeah.
that's saying a lot. I mean, Ben, this is only the second time that Ben has even ever been able to see this thing, you know, and he's been to Egypt dozens of times. But yeah, if you've watched Ben's Serapeum videos, one of the things that you might have seen, because he emphasizes it a lot, is this particular box in the Serapeum, which is off in a separate, private, restricted area that you're usually not allowed to go to. But we were able to get access on this trip, and it was only the second time that Ben has ever been able to be there. This box is, I mean, I don't know. It's bigger than all of the other ones. It's sitting off in a little alcove that it barely fits inside of. And
Is it 9 feet tall with the lid?
yeah,
Maybe.
yeah, yeah, definitely. And it makes no sense. I mean, it just defies explanation.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah.
something that's interesting about this that we talked about the Osiris shaft is you have these boxes in a corner, just pushed
Mhm,
into a corner, and that's what this is. I think one of the theories is that the corner that this is pushed up into, or the wall really that this was pushed up into, that was originally open, and that's how they got the boxes down.
mhm.
I don't know, but this thing is absolutely massive.
Yeah, here's another shot of it. I mean, this guy is standing substantially closer to me than the box actually is. You're getting like some lens distortion here. But yeah, I do think that it's correct to say that with the lid, this thing might be 9 feet tall. So what you were seeing in the previous shot was like Diz was around this side and kind of propped up onto this ledge, like looking at it. But it's just enormous, and it's inside of this like little alcove
We're
that
not even
just makes
talking
no
about the
sense.
nub. We're not even talking
Yeah,
about the nub on it. Like,
right, right,
why would you do that?
right.
Cut away all that granite. I mean, it's
Hmm.
just okay. Yeah, and this is
So
in a special, yeah, place. You were saying, okay.
now this is the Serapeum box, which was blown open with dynamite. Um, and yeah, so it was blown open with dynamite by, you know, a British archaeologist in the 1800s when they first came across it. There's 25 boxes in the Serapeum, if I'm remembering correctly. This is the only one that's dynamited open. There was nothing inside. The story goes, and Yeah, we actually got to sneak our way down there and actually walk inside of it. So I was the next one in after Ben, so that's why I was proud to take this shot. But yeah, again, the inside surface of this thing is just
Yeah, you
yeah,
can see it there on the left, on the bottom left side. I mean, that
yeah,
glossy finish. It's yeah, it's like a glossy finish. Yeah.
yeah, it's unreal. I mean, you can see like yeah, this is the unfinished like front edge of it versus like the finished edge. You know, this is exploded, and this is the real interior, and it's just yeah, unbelievable. This is another one of them. Um, it's just I don't know what to say about these things. These are not, these
They
things,
are enormous.
yeah, they're enormous. They make no sense. I don't know how they got moved into these positions, and I don't know how they got shaped into these shapes, and I don't know how to really convey how hard this stone is, and how smooth
It's
it
steel.
is.
It's effectively steel.
Yeah.
That is a steel box effectively. That's what this is. In these alcoves underground. I mean, just for the ancient Egyptians, given the tools they had to be able to dig out these tunnels. Do you have a picture of the tunnels? They're huge. I mean, obviously they're huge. They need to fit these boxes in them, but you could easily drive a car through them.
Hmm. And they're smooth even in the places where they're not flat, which is something that I think is really particularly interesting. You can maybe kind of see it a little bit up here. There'll be better examples of it later. Um, but like, yeah, these well, yeah, you can see much more of it here. Like, I don't necessarily buy directly into this. Like, I'm not saying anything specific about what I think their function was or if they had a function or whatever. But I mean, people were kind of converging around the idea that like for some reason these things had to be perfect in their like solidity, so that if there was some sort of crack or some sort of imperfection in the substance, then somehow
Mhm.
some way it got scooped out or maybe dissolved out. I mean, to me these kind of look like puddles where acid accumulated or something, um, because they're just unnaturally smooth, circular, rounded, like continuous sort of curves
Yeah.
into the surface of the thing, as if that was like, oh yeah, like there's an imperfection there. Let me just like extract that as best as I can. Um, just yeah, I don't know what to say about it. None of the Serapeum boxes are the same. They didn't stamp out these things from like a specific mold or
They're all
anything like that.
different.
They're each different, but they're each like geometrically perfect and regular, in their own sort of precise way that is like a signature of each one. It's just it's really hard to describe. I mean, to me, this is one of the coolest things is that just we were able to actually literally go stand on these things and touch them. I mean, I just again, it's not to be like elitist about it, but I gotta think that most tourists to Egypt, even if you make it to the Serapeum, which is, a lot of people don't even make it there, but even if you do, you probably didn't get to do this, but we did, and it was pretty sweet. I mean,
Yeah.
especially because Ben's Serapeum series on the Uncharted X channel. I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's mandatory viewing. You have to go watch his Serapeum
Yeah.
series.
This is a red pill moment for a lot of us
I
when
mean,
it comes to Egypt.
Brazenhead's listeners, that like this was the thing that Diz told me years ago. Like, just watch these videos, even if you don't get interested in any of this other stuff. It's just, it's it's unfathomable. I mean, we don't know anything about what the deal is with the Serapeum. It's crazy.
Yeah.
This is the one that's in the hallway, basically when you're leaving. And again, I mean, it's almost as big as that first one that we saw,
Well, that's just the lid.
and this is just the lid. Yeah, exactly.
There's another one that takes up the entire hallway.
Yeah. And
Uh,
you can see like this is less finished, right? Like this is still kind of craggy, but it has like the facets on it
yeah.
already, so
Yeah.
that's
So they
very
took these unfinished boxes
mm-hmm,
down underground where it's dark and finished them there in the
yeah,
dark.
right.
Okay.
I don't
Dude,
know.
one of them supposedly, I don't know how true this is. Ben was kind of iffy about it, but supposedly when they found this place, when Europeans founded the 19th century, they were rocks stacked up on the lids.
Mm-hmm.
Like the lid wasn't heavy enough for what the use was. We had to put more rocks on top of it. That was the overall impression.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I got. I don't know.
I have no
Do with that
idea.
whatever you want.
Yep, I have no idea.
Well, hey, thanks for joining us for part two. So we'll do part three next time, and we'll get to Giza, go through the Great Pyramid. Guys, this comparison photo I have between the King's Chamber and the Great Pyramid, and that photo that we showed you in of the chamber and the Red Pyramid, you're gonna freak. You will freak because it's not just that one block; it's the whole set of blocks. It's all you'll see.
Yeah,
So
so
stay tuned for that.
I mean, yeah, just to wrap things up, like here's a cute little closing picture. I thought this one was really good. This was just us coming out of dinner one night. We were back in Giza. You can see pyramids of Giza in the background. You can see our coach bus, where we were driving back to the hotel. This is us all walking out of dinner, exhausted. Police presence, like
Yeah,
Egyptian dudes with fatigues. There was a machine
military.
gun. There was
Yep.
a machine gun in the back of this open pickup truck here. I just thought that was a nice evocative little sunset picture. But yeah, basically what we have coming up next is we have Thanksgiving Day, which we spent at Abu Sir and Abu Ghurab, which were kind of like lesser sites, like off the beaten path. But there's definitely some cool stuff there. There's a lot of tool marks at those sites. So we'll get through those, but then we're going to have sort of our grand finale back at Giza. And one other thing that you might want to do if you want to is if you go to the YouTube channel that's called History for Granite, like that's a pun, like granite, like the stone, history for granite. Um, he just did a video about the locked off passageway that's inside of the Queen's Chamber. Um, and so like he has some cool kind of like historical evidence about like, oh, when was that passageway like explored, like when did they first excavate that, like who did that, why are the stones on the floor laid out the way that they are right in front of that passageway. But you'll see if you watch that video, it's like one of his most recent videos, you'll see that he's like very interested in this locked off passageway that's inside of the Queen's Chamber. And just little spoiler for what's coming up is that we got to go inside of that thing for whatever reason. I don't know, it was unlocked. And so yeah, we'll take a look inside of there and some other cool stuff next time around.
All right, man. Well, yeah. If you guys have any questions, any feedback, I mean, of course, leave a comment. We're going to post this on YouTube. But any questions, of course, thebrazenheadspodcast at gmail.com.
Yeah, all right, sounds good. Yeah, we'll talk to you then. Thanks everybody, and yeah, talk to you later.